Hello and good afternoon.
Hi, how are you doing today?
Absolutely fantastic. How about you?
I'm great, thanks.
You're out there.
Thanks very much for inviting me on your show.
Oh, absolutely. This are you kidding? This is a true American story. I mean, this is one of the things that I really love about your style of writing is that we've gone into this fantasy world, but no, you actually bring us something here that is very Americana.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, that was the dream at the beginning of the process.
What was that process like for you to go through? Because every author has a different kind of story.
So, I guess my relationship with the spill goes back to when the spill happened back in 2010. I was living in New Orleans at the time, and when the explosion happened on the Deepwater Horizon, nobody knew how big it would get. And nobody, I think, anticipated that it was going to be the largest accidental oil spill in world history. So I think everyone was sort of gobsmacked by the enormity of it. And that summer, I read an interview in the local weekly paper in New Orleans about an oyster farm that was closing down as oil was making its way into Louisiana's inland waters. And I was just fascinated by this industry that I knew nothing about, the generational sort of legacy that oyster farmers have and their relationship with their oyster reefs. And also, more importantly, I didn't know that an oyster farmer cultivates multiple years of oysters on his reef. So
Wow.
The threat of an oil spill was not just 1 year's loss, but it was several years loss. And so it was a really uncertain time, and I just couldn't get that out of my mind.
It's one of those things where if it's not on the front page of the newspaper or if they're not talking about it on ABC News, it falls completely out of our lives. And I think, wow, that could be the underlying story that I like here because there is always a repercussion of something bad that goes wrong. And that's the thing about it is that we don't know about the oyster farmers. We don't even know about the oysters themselves. We always think if there's an oil spill, oh, there must be ducks, there must be birds that are involved with this. It goes deeper, like you said.
Yeah, I think the imagery of the oil spill was very focused on oiled birds and the casualties of wildlife was really staggering, from dolphin deaths that
Yes.
spike to the shrimp population and of course the oysters. And the oysters, I think, are particularly important because they're what's known as a keystone species, which means that the health of that organism is an indication of the health of the overall ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that there was widespread oyster mortality after the spill was an indication of just how the ecosystem was recovering or not recovering.
Because it proves that it more than just financial recovery had to take place here. The entire planet had to heal itself. And everything that I've read about oysters is that they're very protective of the planet.
Yes, they're just amazing. They're amazing animals. They play a hugely important role in purifying the estuaries. They provide a habitat for other species, juvenile species to, provide safe harbor for them. And then they also protect coastlines from storm surges.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, we know the story of the oil leak, but the thing is, the story that you have here with Jordan and with Benny, I mean, this is an authentic story, is it not?
Yes. The Pearce family is authentic in that it was based on research, but they're entirely fictional. So after the oil spill, I received a grant to record the oral histories of Louisiana oyster farmers and fishermen across the state. And I wanted to get a sense of how the reefs were faring and how they were affected, and also what it was like to live through that environmental disaster. So that became the foundation of the novel, although the family that is the centerpiece of the novel is entirely made up.
Yeah, because it does. It plays out like I want to see this on TV. I mean, I want to see somebody play your role of getting, doing the investigation, doing the research and everything like that. And somehow, some way, you get mixed in with Jordan and Benny, and of course with Mom, who's kind of a little difficult to deal with. I mean, it just plays out like a real binge watch.
Oh, the fingers crossed. I would love that. I would love this story to have, as much reach as possible.
But you would have to be a part of that, though, because I mean, that what you bring to these pages is a real serious depth.
Oh, thank you for saying that. Yeah, it's the hope that, in telling this, in making you care about the characters, you care about what they're going through and what they're living through, and how their business is going to make it through or not going to make it through. So it means a lot to hear that. Yeah.
And someone like Benny, who, I mean, I realize he's got a very big love for music, but he also has that love inside of his heart for his brother Jordan. So they've got to come back together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In some ways it's not a typical love story, but there's a big through line of the book is how these brothers can learn to appreciate one another, and how they're forced to appreciate one another by living through this event together. So as you mentioned, Benny is living in New Orleans, which is about an hour and a half away from where Jordan is living in Lafourche Parish. And Benny wants nothing to do with the oyster business. And then the spill happens, and Jordan needs help because he loses one of his deckhands to more lucrative oil spill cleanup. And so Benny comes home reluctantly, and he's got some unfortunate, ill-fated plans for coming home that you'll read more about in the novel. But he'd never expected to return home, and certainly not to work on an oyster boat again. So it's an opportunity for them to spend time with one another as adults when normally they couldn't be in the same room without having an argument.
Isn't it kind of inspiring, do you think, to guys who are going to read this book, and even with women that, bring the family back together? Because, I mean, I've said it in my heart, I'm never going back to Montana, but there's still that one little bit of me that's going to go, you're going to get the call one day. You're going to get the call.
Mm-hmm. I think, having gone through disasters with my family, we can all expect to get the call, regardless of our feeling about, our family's politics or our family dynamics. Everybody's family life is complicated, but at some point you'll usually get a phone call and you'll have to go back home, and that will open up old wounds.
In all your research, do you wish that there would be a lot more focus put on the waters of this planet rather than shooting up into space trying to get to Mars as well as the moon?
Yes, absolutely. I have no shortage of astonishment for this planet that we inhabit. My focus is down here.
Yeah. I feel the same way because I live in this forest here in South Charlotte, and it's baby season when it comes to the deer, and we're anxious about it. Every single year at this time, we get to see the little fawns, and we're just so thrilled by it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Here, I live in the Pacific Northwest now, and the birds this year have been incredible. So I think, the older I get, the more I learn to delight in what I didn't maybe appreciate growing up. Yeah.
Now, you're up there in the Oregon area, correct?
Yes. Yeah, I live in Portland now.
So you've got that Oregon blue up there. Oh, my God, that bird grabbed my attention back at the beginning part of this millennium, and I've never forgotten the presence of that bluebird.
Oh yeah, what brought it to your attention to begin with?
We were over there in the Hoh Rainforest, which is up in Washington, and I saw the bird fly by, and I was just mesmerized by it, and it was like, I've got to learn more about this bird, and so that's when I really found out that the importance of this bird, and because I'm really into blue jays, and I'm into because birds are just my totem animal, and so for you to be up there in Oregon with that Oregon blue, my God, that's got to be a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I've only lived here for about 2 years now. My husband's from Oregon, which is why we ended up settling here. But I am just awestruck by the beauty here. We're just a stone's throw from the Columbia River Gorge.
Oh my God!
Which is an astonishing drive and place to hike. Beautiful waterfalls out here. Oh yeah, we're really lucky to live here.
That's another part of the storyline of this country that people have totally forgotten about. I mean, that Columbia River is a major part of this history.
Absolutely. Now I say that, but I do deeply miss living in Louisiana. I loved my time in New Orleans, and I'm really inspired by the landscape down there as well. Cool.
Do you allow the land to speak to you while you're writing? Because I love sitting in my writing chair, which overlooks this forest, and that's, to me, that's where the energy is coming from. You being up there in Oregon with all that beauty, is it the same thing?
Yeah, well, I guess I go to nature to reconnect with my senses.
Yeah.
And maybe that always improves my writing. So I think you can write from a really cerebral place, but it's nice to feel in your body when you're writing and aware of your senses. Oh, yeah. Over the years, because I haven't lived in Louisiana permanently since 2011. I've went back and did research trips just to really immerse myself again in the sights and the sounds and the food of the place, so I could have enough sensory detail to fill out the novel. Because I think you can be surprised. You can be surprised by some of the specificity when you come back to a place. Yeah, and your heart fills back up again. Wow. Where can people go to find out more about your writing and to really show you some love? You can go to my website, which is joselyntakacs.com. And I'm new on Instagram, so you could show me some love on Instagram too. Yeah, because that is so important. A lot of people don't realize that the analytics of social media is so important to those who are creative, because that's exactly what the publishers are going to want. Oh, so show me your numbers. What are you doing for numbers? What do you got for people? So, yes, show you some love. That would be much appreciated. I think as a writer, you like to pretend that, those things don't matter, especially because you're focused on creating the best thing that you can and trying to say something true about this moment that we're living in, or I guess in my case about a particular moment in 2010. But when you come back up after having finished a piece of work, you have to rejoin communities and connect with people and have conversations about the work. So I'm in that process right now. Wow. Well, please come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you. Oh, I'd love to. It's been a real pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much for having me on. Well, you be brilliant today, okay? Oh, you as well.